Thank you for joining us for another great service at First and LR. I'm honored that you have set aside part of your week to be with us. If you enjoy watching the service, you'll love it even more in person. We would love for you to come and spend a weekend in a service with us and introduce yourself in the guest center. You can learn more about service times and other ways to connect at firstandlr.com. I'm praying that today's message speaks to you, and I'm believing for God to do marvelous things in your life.
Our debt is not an option.
Not an option. It will have catastrophic consequences.
Breaking news coming out in the past 48 hours that the next pandemic is already on the way.
And we will have a recession running perhaps deep into next year.
In a single night, the Israeli military attacked 750 Hamas and Hezbollah sites.
Across the country, states are trying to tackle the growing mental health crisis.
Well, could the next pandemic make the height of the COVID-19 outbreak look mild? That's what's
Recently, I was talking to a group of pastors, and at the end of my talk, there was question and answer time. It was good discussion, good disagreement. It was an interactive learning environment. And then one guy raised his hand, and he asked, what's been the biggest surprise to you as a lead pastor? What do you wish someone had prepared you for? And I thought for a moment. It was a good question. And then I gave an honest answer. I said, loneliness. No one prepared me for how lonely this job can be. I'm surrounded by people all the time, but I have so many people to spend time with, I don't have a large amount of time to spend with anyone. There are days, even good days, when I'm incredibly lonely, and I didn't expect that. And I don't think that's unique to a large church pastor. I think it's something we all struggle with. And the room grew quiet. No one knew how to respond. My honesty made the room uncomfortable. And after a few moments of awkward silence, we just moved on. I didn't tell them for sympathy. I'm not telling you for sympathy. And I'm not asking you to be my new best buddy. I don't have time for a new best buddy. So if your thought that is, well, I need to call Rod 3 times a day and encourage him, that will not encourage me. That will discourage me. Don't. I'm just admitting something that for some reason people are reluctant to admit. Sometimes I struggle with loneliness. I'm surrounded by people, but still feel alone. I'm not the only one. Listen to this from Fortune magazine's website. Millions of Americans are suffering from a deadly, expensive health issue, one for which we have no vaccine, immunity, or quick cure. It's loneliness, and it quietly permeates every level of our society. Each year, loneliness costs families, the healthcare system, and businesses hundreds of billions of dollars. It's a shockingly common issue. Then they shared these statistics. Nearly 3 in 5 U.S. adults are considered lonely. Over 2/3, 11 to 17-year-olds, are stressed out about loneliness. We all face loneliness. It's the stay-at-home mom whose only companions are children. That's lonely. It's the busy executive struggling with the stress of responsibility and lonely. It's the college student wondering what comes next. It's the widow who lost her husband of 50 years. It's the student feeling like no one can possibly understand what they're going through. It's the caregiver watching their loved one slowly decline. It's the guy who just got out of prison and is struggling to fit. It's the person experiencing success for the first time and the addict in recovery who had to leave a lot of friends behind. It's a student whose parents don't support their dreams. And it's the family from another country, away from the traditions and the places and the people they love. We need to talk about this because chances are at some point you're going to feel alone. Now, whether you are alone isn't the issue. The issue is you feel alone. Please hear me. Feeling lonely doesn't make you a failure, doesn't make you flawed. Feeling lonely isn't a sin. Many people deal with loneliness. So I want to help you if you're struggling. If you're not currently struggling, one day when you do, this passage of Scripture and this outline will help. Paul was one of the early heroes of the church, amazing church planner, missionary evangelist. At the time we read, now he's an old man, alone in prison, waiting his execution. 2 Timothy is the last book Paul ever wrote. Chapter 4 is the last words Paul ever wrote. We pick it up in verse 6. Paul said, I'm already being poured out like a drink offering, and the time has come for my departure. I fought the good fight. I've finished the race, and I've kept the faith. I know my time is short. The end is near. I'm going to be executed. Paul was facing a physical fight, in this case, sickness and death. Paul was a people person who never went anywhere by himself. Now, at the end of his life, Paul was in prison, separated and isolated from those he loved. He couldn't call or FaceTime. He couldn't text or email. So he wrote a letter to Timothy. And he said, do your best to come to me quickly. For Demas, because he loved this world, has deserted me and gone to Thessalonica. Apparently, when things got tough, everyone deserted Paul. It's lonely when you're betrayed, forgotten, forsaken, abandoned. Rejection is a devastating form of hurt. Do you remember the first time a boyfriend or a girlfriend broke up with you? Or do you remember when the first time you wrote the note? Do you know the note? Everybody writes it. I like you. Do you like me? And then 3 boxes, and it says check 1, yes, no, maybe. Yeah, I remember I wrote that note in 3rd grade. I was a shy introvert, and I had my heart set on Patty. And I took the bold step of writing the note, and I slipped it across the aisle to her, and I watched when she opened it up, and then she checked a box and folded it back up and sent it back to me. And I opened it up, and she had checked, maybe. Yes! And because I was so shy, I never did anything with that. So, when someone you poured your life into walks away without explanation, it hurts. Seems like the people you spend the most time with and do the most for are the people who leave. That's what happened to Paul. He was fighting the pain of rejection and betrayal. He was in an emotional fight. Then verse 14, Alexander, the metal worker, did me a great deal of harm. The Lord will repay him for what he's done. You too should be on your guard against him because he strongly opposed our message. When you're attacked, ridiculed, or criticized, when you face opposition, it makes you lonely. It's lonely when you're going through a painful experience no one understands. It's lonely when you're misunderstood and embarrassed. It's lonely when people attack your character, your values, your beliefs. It's lonely when you're bitingly criticized by someone you thought was a friend. I have a pastor friend who's done a remarkable job leading a church through change, and you're not aware of this, but some people don't like change. It's really true. A group of people in his church didn't like the changes. They were mean, they were critical. He called me one day, and he said, Rod, can I be honest with you? I'm really lonely. I just need to talk. We've all been there. Opposition makes you lonely. Paul was in a physical fight. Death was approaching. He was in an emotional fight, dealing with rejection and betrayal. He's also in a personal fight, fighting people who rejected, deserted, and opposed him. And now we come to verse 16, which I think is one of the top 10 saddest verses in Scripture. At my first offense, no one came to my support, but everyone deserted me. Paul was going to be executed for preaching about Jesus. He took a stand for righteousness, and no one stood with him. The great leader, the great teacher had to stand trial. You'd think the whole church would show up, and you know who showed up? 0. Not one person. Now, I'd like to think that if I had to stand trial for sharing my faith, at least 1 or 2 of you would show up at the courtroom. Not in Paul's case. Courtroom held no supporters, no one on Paul's side. No one came and said, wait a second, you can't kill him? He's not a criminal, he's a pastor sharing the love of God. You can't do anything to this man. I rise in his defense. Nope, Paul stood alone. Maybe you've been there. You stand for right and no one stands with you because they don't want to pay the price. Paul was in a spiritual fight, standing alone for righteousness. This wasn't a pseudo stand with a few social media posts. Social media posts are not taking a stand. Paul was going to be executed for preaching Jesus. Had to be lonely. I was a senior in high school, English class. Everyone was invited to a big party that Friday night, almost everyone. The girl in front of me turned around and said, we're not inviting you, Reverend Rod, because we know you won't like what we're going to do. I was flattered that they knew where I stood and I wouldn't have gone anyway to their beat up party. But at the same time, it was lonely. I stood alone for righteousness. Paul was in a physical fight, an emotional fight, a personal fight, a spiritual fight, all at the same time, while he's by himself in prison. Paul had to be incredibly drained and desperately lonely. So what did he do? How did he deal with the loneliness? What do you do? How do you overcome loneliness? How do you stay strong when you're alone? People try all kinds of ineffective ways to overcome loneliness. Some people become a workaholic. They try to solve loneliness with activity. They think if they stay busy, they won't be lonely, so they work and work and work and work and then fall into bed exhausted. But when they get up in the morning, they're still lonely. Some people think they can cure loneliness with things. They buy nice clothes and expensive cars and beautiful homes, go on great vacations, all in an attempt to feel better. If they don't have the resources, they still indulge in what they call a little retail therapy. It doesn't last. If I put you on a deserted island, you can have anything you want, except people. You might be happy a few days, but you wouldn't be happy for long. My friends, Dwight and Deborah, they talked me into watching a really stupid TV show. It's called Alone. Anybody seen it? 10 idiots are dropped off in the wilderness with absolutely nothing. They're not together. They're like 5 miles apart. There's water and stuff between them. So they're truly alone. They don't know how long they're there for. Whoever lasts the longest wins $500,000. They record themselves with GoPros and stuff. It's monumentally boring and incredibly addictive. I mean, they're shooting squirrels with bows and arrows and eating it. I know some of y'all do that, but I don't. They eat mice. They build their own shelters. It's bizarre watching them just slowly, their bodies and their minds break down as they stay. Well, I was watching this week. Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm addicted. Started a new season. And in this season, the first day, they dropped off all 10 of them. And one guy, he'd been an Army Ranger, he taught survival school, he'd been in combat, and I was like, he's gonna win this season. He's the dude. He lasted 7 hours. 7 hours. And he called and said, I'm tapping out, I quit. He said, I never imagined doing this all by myself. To which I want to say, they call the show Alone. Some people try to overcome loneliness by having an affair or sex outside marriage, all in an attempt to find acceptance. It's sad to watch. People compromise their standards just to have someone there. Many of your failures start with loneliness. Some turn to pornography, but that's false intimacy. That just increases loneliness. Some people get drunk, take drugs, go to bars. Some people change churches, think that a new surrounding will solve it. Other people do nothing. They sit around and have a pity party and post on Facebook how lonely they are. Loneliness will paralyze you if you let it. So what do? How do you overcome it? I want to cut back through this chapter, and there's some lessons to learn from Paul. I've fought the good fight. I've finished the race. I've kept the faith. Now there's in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award me on that day. And not only me, but all who have longed for his appearing. At his loneliest moment, Paul was thinking about his eternal reward. He had heaven in mind. To overcome loneliness, maintain an eternal perspective. Sometimes when you're lonely, it helps to remember this is not forever. I'm just here for a little while on my way to heaven, where there's a crown waiting for me in the presence of Jesus. When this life ends, I'm going there. Heaven's the point of this. I had my annual physical this week. And so the doctor, he does, I mean, it takes like half a day. The doctor does all kinds of tests, and I go through all this stuff, and then I go to dermatology, and I do all this other stuff. And at the end, I come back to meet with the doctor. And Cindy went with me this week, so she came in the meeting with me. And he's reading all these results, and he's telling me all this stuff. And then he said, I've got good news for you, Rod. He said, looking at all this, you have a long life expectancy. You'll live longer than average. And you're clapping. I said, I don't want that. I want to live longer than average. I don't know what average is, but I was kind of hoping to be a little below average when it comes to that. And Cindy was like, shut up. I said, I'm looking forward to heaven, Doc. Every day here, you're a little closer to death, which means that's when you get to start real life, really living. I'm looking forward to that. Paul said, Alexander the metal worker did me a great deal of harm. The Lord will repay him for what he's done. You should be on your guard against him because he strongly opposed our message. Paul talked about Alexander who opposed him. That was a bad thing. But Paul turned it for good and used his experience as a lesson for Timothy and the church. Bad that it happened to Paul, good that it wouldn't happen to them. To overcome loneliness, use the bad for good. Turn it around. Here's some things you can ask. What can I learn from this experience? You're there. So you might as well learn something. And then can I share what I've learned with someone else? Can God use this experience to create ministry opportunities? Can I somehow prevent others from facing this? Use the bad for good. Then there's a powerful lesson in verse 16. The first half, at my first defense, no one came to my support. Everyone deserted me. Paul, the great leader, the great teacher, had to stand trial. No one showed up. Not a staff member, not a board member, not a church member, not even the little old lady who comes to everything, not the guy who only shows up hoping he gets cookies. Nobody. No one came to support Paul. Paul had to be angry. How dare they? Those sorry dogs. But look at the second half of the verse. Here's what Paul didn't say. Paul didn't say, in my first offense, no one came to my support, so I let them know exactly what I thought about them. Paul didn't say, in my first offense, no one came to my support, so I quit the church. Paul didn't say, in my first offense, no one came to my support, so I decided I would never trust again. Look what Paul said. Look at the second half of the verse. In my first offense, no one came to my support, but everyone deserted me. May it not be held against them. Wow. Paul refused to be angry or bitter. He understood that resentment only increases loneliness. The lesson is to overcome loneliness, forgive your offenders. I understand you've got a story. People didn't treat you right. Someone was mean. Things didn't go your way. No one stood with you. They didn't handle it the way they thought you should. Let it go. Refuse to be bitter. Forgive your offenders. I talk to people who have a story happened 3 months, 6 months, 6 years ago. I've talked to people whose story is more than 20 years old. 20 years later, they're still holding tight to that story. It's still their reason to stay alone. It's still their reason not to trust. It's still their reason not to get close. In the words of Disney, it's time to let it go. You're letting a past offense keep you from moving forward. You're not hurting them, you're hurting you. In 2 weeks, it'll be 20 years ago. Christmas Eve 2003. It's a long story that I'm not going to go into because the story doesn't matter. The end is what matters. But people had come against the church and said all kinds of craziness, trying to destroy the church, and it had been a long fight, and I held it. I mean, I was resentful and angry. Secretly, I wished that bad things would happen to them. I held it. And on Christmas Eve, almost 20 years ago, I don't remember what me and Cindy were doing at the time. It was just eating away at me. I said, hey, I need to go to church. She said, you're going to work on Christmas Eve? I said, I have to. I'm not going to work. I got to work through something. And I came here in the sanctuary by myself. Not a surprise, it was by myself. It was Christmas Eve. And I knelt down right there. And I just prayed, Lord, I can't live with this anymore. I can't hold on to this anymore. I give it to you. And right here, right now, I declare that's not my story anymore. I'm letting it go, Lord. And there was such a wonderful sense of peace in that moment and of Him with me. It's not oversimplification to say that your closest moments to the Lord, when you're most like Jesus, is when you forgive others. Paul said, I'm here all alone. I'm in a dark prison at the end of my life. I'm going to die. All my friends left me. No one even showed up for the trial. But, verse 17, the Lord stood at my side and gave me strength. Where is God when you're lonely? He's right there with you. There is no place you are that God is not. No matter where you go, His presence is with you. Jesus said, I'll never leave you. I'll never forsake you. When you're lonely, recognize His presence. Open your eyes. Listen to me. You may be lonely, but the follower of Jesus is never alone. Paul said, the Lord stood at my side and gave me strength. Why? So that through me the message might be fully proclaimed and all the Gentiles might hear it. Paul's life goal to the end, even when dying and lonely, was clear. He wanted everyone to know about the love of Jesus. Paul stopped looking at himself and turned his focus to others. Paul said, God gave me strength, but not so I could feel better. Not so I wouldn't be lonely. God gave me His strength for a purpose so that through me the message of the gospel would be heard. When you're lonely, emphasize others' needs. Focus outwards on other people. Get your eyes off yourself and reach out. Paul was not bitter, angry, or resentful. Instead, he focused on who could be reached. He's an amazing guy. The lesson is, when you're lonely, stop building walls, start building bridges. See, when you're lonely, it's tempting to let your perspective look like this. You're this little blue guy, all alone in the world. I'm so lonely. Everybody hates me. No one loves me. No one's even called to check on me. They don't even know I'm here. Depending on your age, you got a little song you sing. You sing gloom, despair, and agony on me. Deep, dark depression, excessive misery. If it weren't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. Gloom, despair, agony on me. You're that little guy. Just a little blue guy, all by yourself. But the reality is, statistics tell us 3 out of 5 people are lonely. So in a room of 100 other people, there are actually 60 other little blue guys. Stop building walls, start building bridges. Build bridges to other little blue guys. Build bridges to other lonely people. Build bridges to hurting people. Use God's presence in your loneliness as momentum to share the love of Jesus with others. Refuse to sit in sorrow. Reach out. Many Christians suffer with loneliness because they sit instead of serve. And there are so many lonely people who need our care. It's the elderly person in the rest home or in the lonely apartment, the student who feels nobody understands, the single adult who comes home to an empty house, the woman whose husband decided to move out, the employee you work with who heads to the bar every night. It's the widow who just buried her husband. If you're lonely, when you're lonely, I challenge you to begin a ministry of friendship. Invite somebody to coffee. Offer a listening ear. Take the initiative to meet people. Don't build walls. I'm just going to surround myself with walls and stay alone. Build bridges. Look your loneliness in the face and determine to ease that same ache in someone else's heart. And when you do, it changes you. So what was Paul's response to all the attacks at once? Physical, emotional, personal, spiritual. Way too much for anyone to handle. Did Paul get mad at God? Did he fall into depression? No, in the middle of that prison, the cold, dark, lonely dungeon, Paul began to worship. He modeled the right response to loneliness and attacks. This is the verse I want you to focus on and remember. When you leave today, the ushers have a card for you because I want you to put it somewhere to remind you. Here it is. Ready? I love this. This is one of my favorite verses in the whole Bible. The Lord will rescue you from every evil attack and will bring you safely to his heavenly kingdom. To him be glory forever and ever. Amen. Isn't that a great verse?
What an incredible service. Thank you for joining us and being a part of our church family. If you have any questions about today's service, if you need prayer, or if you just want to learn more about First and LR, go to firstandlr.com or follow us on social media at First and LR.